It feels like yesterday that we were together last in this room. June 27th, not really that long ago. It's been about 90 days. And you could look at it a couple ways. It's so recent, or you could look at how much we've managed to get done. Because we set out some fairly audacious goals. And I think if you're like me on June 27th, you swallowed pretty hard relative to the things we were setting out to do in terms of bringing IT together at Vanderbilt for the first time. And we said then that we knew there was a certain artificiality to just starting. Let's just start. Let's put the team together. We have some plans, but at some other level, let's put the team together and see what evolves. Let's see what we can work out on our own. And indeed, that's what we did. And we talked about how we would start at that meeting and then work our way forward. We'd have a lot more to say as we got to January of 14. And then we would have a lot more to say when we got to July of next year, the beginning of the next fiscal year for Vanderbilt. And I'll tell you that in my view, we've made even more progress than we could expect in just 90 days. We've gotten a lot done. We've gotten pretty good results on most of the things that we had as part of an explicit plan. We've also taken on some change, some surprise assignments. We've dealt with those well. And maybe most encouraging for me is that we've taken on some work organically. We found ways to combine teams that weren't part of any master plan. And we've done that along the way. We've done that in a sense and respond kind of way that positions us even better in terms of our ability to serve the institution than I think we could have hoped for. And so we have a lot to do. We've done a lot of hard work together, and there's a lot more. But I think it's appropriate to pause, reflect, and be very proud of what we've done. I've had the chance to work with a lot of you in the daily work that we do, not the planning and theorizing and thinking about the future, but the rolling up the sleeves kind of work that we do along the way. And I'm really proud to be on your team. The chance to do that work with you has been very rewarding for me. I'm more and more impressed by all the things we do, lots of which doesn't get much publicity around the campus. And I'm thrilled to be part of Vanderbilt IT with you. I look forward to working with all of you as we move along through time. Now let's take a quick look at what we'll cover today. My intention would be to fairly quickly take a look in the rearview mirror at some of what we've already achieved, because we have gotten a lot done. We're all performance-oriented people. We spend a lot of our time thinking about what's next, thinking about our to-do list, thinking about the schedule upcoming. It's crucial that we stop from time to time and reflect. And so we'll do that fairly briefly. Take a look at what we've achieved so far. We'll then do a bit of education. We'll talk about it, talk about our plans. This was the #1 requirement coming out of the surveys that were done before we formed as Vanderbilt IT. And we'll hear a little while from Merit Chandler about our plan for education, and then we'll actually do some education. We're going to have a panel discussion, which I think you'll find illuminating. After that, we'll have a little bit of celebration of some service awards. A number of our colleagues are celebrating service anniversaries, and we'll acknowledge them and thank them for their service. We'll then close, as we did last time, with a bit of a view of what's next. We also have a guest speaker along the way who I think you'll find very, very interesting, quite relevant on a set of topics that are not only important in the world today, but an important part of a crucial Vanderbilt initiative. So, if we take a look at what we've done so far, this glimpse in the rearview mirror, I think it's appropriate that we organize that around the principles that we said we would use as we evolved. And so you remember last time when I was here, we talked about these principles. We talked about focusing on our customers. We talked about developing our team, cultivating a sense of governance around the institution, setting the dials right on things like how much we do custom, how much we do with packages, how much we do in-house, how much we do with partners, how much we do once in a common way for the whole institution, and how much we do in a very customized way that is unique to specific requirements in one school, in one clinic, in one lab, in one part of Vanderbilt. And finally, we talked about the need to consistently communicate. Again, we don't always get credit for the things we do. We don't always talk about it so well. We don't always explain ourselves so well. And it's been very important as we've launched that we've done a better job of that. Some of that is intramural, communicating with ourselves about what we're intending to do and how it's going. Some of that is to the broader Vanderbilt community. We've made progress on both, which we'll describe. So let's start with how we're doing relative to our customers. We have a very complicated set of customers at Vanderbilt. First off, as an institution, we have at least 3 distinct missions around what we're doing in education, what we're doing in patient care, and what we're doing in research. These things are also rather interconnected. There are also lots of side projects that are relevant to one or more of those that pop up, we have to respond to. Some of them get woven into the mainstream of the institution, some of them don't. It's very complicated. Lots of disciplines, and increasingly, at the Chancellor's behest, more and more interdisciplinary work, where we have to weave together different parts of the institution. In some cases, that used to be much more divided, and we're seeing more and more examples where things come together. Now, we had a lot of people, as we formed, who talked to customers. But what we didn't have was an organized function dedicated to talking to customers, assuring that we understood their requirements, that we were managing their expectations, exposing our capabilities, understanding which of those were relevant to what they were trying to get done. Lots of us did that part-time. In fact, we had many, many FTEs, if you will, equivalent people, but not enough people who focused that in terms of what they did all day. And so you'll remember when we had the management team up here last time that 2 of our leaders, Jason Roosh and Penny Pierce, have as their remit focusing on these customers. Jason broadly across the institution, and so within his team are folks that are working with the various divisions that you would find housed in Kirkland, different parts of the medical center, the whole range. And then in Penny's case, very specific focus on the leadership in the schools. Now, sort of the way fractals work, where you have a big shape of a coastline or something and then you drill in, you find a similar pattern. It's very complicated even when you think you're looking at a narrow spot. These teams kind of lay out that way. Jason and his team have a very complicated set of folks to call on. If you zoom in, though, on Penny's space, well, that sounds simpler. That's just the schools. Well, those of you that work with the schools know that just the schools is pretty complicated itself. I asked Penny the other day if she could just for my sake, because a lot of this is still relatively new to me, if she could just lay out in a little block diagram the landscape of what she was doing, what her team was doing. So she complied, and she came back with a very simple block diagram that laid it out so that I could understand it quickly, and it looks like this. And I thought, well, that's sort of what I meant, but she said, well, there are more pages if you need them. And I thought it was interesting because it demonstrates the complexity of what we all do, and you all know this from the work you do. And so we have a lot of sophistication in the institution we serve and a lot of variety. That stands in opposition, if we let it, to our desire to bring this together as one Vanderbilt IT. And we have to find a way to balance and do both. Understand the complexity, make sure that we are straightforward enough that folks can deal with us, and then deliver the right kind of quality to our clients. Next, we talk about developing the team. One of the brightest prospects for being one Vanderbilt IT is the chance to get people who do similar things together in departments where we can have career paths and deeper skills and the chance to share. I talked last time about how in the roundtables we had done, I had many examples where I realized people were meeting each other for the first time. It happened seat next to seat several times. Oh, you're Bob. We've been emailing each other for years. I had no idea. And then they would say, that's what you look like. I think what they might have meant was, you're so handsome. But I had no idea. That's you, Bob. Well, now a lot of these teams are together. And we have the chance to share our skills. We've already had the chance to create some new positions and leadership positions where maybe before people were in onesie-twosie kind of situations. Out on the end of the org, just one person out there doing their thing. In many cases, we've brought folks together, and now we've got half a dozen or 12 or 15 folks doing the same thing. And while it doesn't all change at once, this will have a big effect for us over time in terms of growth opportunity, career path opportunities for everybody, and also a chance as we bring the skill sets together to allow us to further develop ourselves. We talked about a few specifics last time in terms of things we were hearing, and I wanted to be sure to give a bit of a progress report on how we were doing. We were ambitious on June 27th. We threw these things up on the list. feeling was we ought to be able to knock these out. These are things we heard in the survey. These are things we heard in the roundtable. Some of you will recognize favorite ideas up here. We've made a lot of progress. I think it's fair to say that a number of these we've advanced. A lot of them felt like a big deal in June are kind of behind us. They're really in the rearview mirror. They're way back there. We had a lot of questioning at the time about, well, where are we? Are we in the medical center? Are we in the university? Are we? And I said at the time, well, you know what? It's neither of those. We're just Vanderbilt. We're Vanderbilt IT. I don't get as much of that buzz anymore. We have a lot of examples where folks are working in multiple parts of the institution, and I think we're starting to make some headway in that for sure. We've also found the chance to combine, as I was describing, lots of teams around similar skills. There are many examples of this. I think one of the best ones might be the network team. Dave Matthews is the leader. You'll hear from him in a little while, be part of our panel. Dave's down in front here. And he has joined up folks principally from two big teams that had a network organization, but a few other folks into one group. And that's allowed us to do several things. First, we've met our colleagues. We've been able to share our experiences, share our skill sets, do some things technically to start bringing the network together towards one network, which is very much our goal as we turn over the next few months and quarters. It's also allowed us to reach some real economies of scale and some economies of skill. It also turns out that that's allowed us to right-size the team a little bit. Turns out when you put everyone together, as we've had a couple open positions, we don't need to fill every one of those because we've eliminated some duplication. And in terms of straight talk, I think it's very important that everyone understand that we've been able to do that along the way. We have right-sized the teams here and there around, which has put us in a position where we're really fit right now for our mission. And in fact, we've turned the corner to where we're hiring. In fact, we're hiring aggressively in 2 of the units, and you can expect that we'll be in that mode for some time. And I think this is a very important message relative to our workforce, our opportunity, and what you can expect. And so, in some cases, while you weren't watching, in some cases, while you were in a department that was being joined up, we've been able to right-size some key areas, find the economies we were looking for. This, in turn, has allowed us the chance to open up a lot of higher tickets in Vanderbilt IT, which really is very gratifying. You saw the managers on stage last time, our Vanderbilt IT directors. It was the first time that they had all been assembled. And we've been working hard on development of this team as well. We spend a couple hours a week together, and we have an opportunity to really exchange ideas from around. And you'll notice the team is made up of folks from all different places, all different skill sets and perspectives. And it's been very useful to understand some of the priorities that we should focus on by bringing these folks together and working on our speed and fluidity. And one of the most gratifying things for me is the leaders themselves have found several more examples where we've been able to make some moves that weren't certainly part of any plan I had as we came together back in July. We've still got work to do, though, because we need to get the whole team running in one direction. So I've been searching, trying to think of ways to inspire them. Sometimes it's appropriate to reach out to external resources, global leaders in a given field. And so what we've been doing lately is trying to get people motivated to really get in one direction. I've reached out to the clear global leaders in being one direction-y. One direction. And so what I've asked, and it's a little bit of a stretch for some of these guys, to be fair. They weren't all up dancing earlier. I've asked them to really stretch and think about how to get in one direction. It's a little challenging for Zaffer, but you can see there. Is anyone else getting from Daryl on the left there sort of a Mrs. Doubtfire vibe? I think the craziest part is, Sal, that actually looks like it all fits. I don't know. So we're making big headway, and we really have had some fabulous synergy with the team. Lots more to do, to be sure, but we're making big headway. Training. Again, education and training was a key requirement. This is important enough that I don't want to cover it in one slide. We're actually going to have a module, as I described. Merritt, presumably still wearing her band. Are you going to change? Well, you've got 2 changes of clothes. So she's going to change from the band suit over to the business suit, and then she's going to talk a little bit about what we're doing, both in gathering requirements and understanding what we need to do in terms of training, and also some of the specifics. And so we'll come to that in just a little while. The next point we talked about as a key principle is governance. Now, this word, I have been accused of using way too much. People kind of roll their eyes. Well, here he goes again with the G word. It's getting a little tiresome. I'm not going to give up, though, because I think it is of utmost importance that we get this right. Last time we talked about sort of an abstract model for what was included in governance. And the idea was, whatever we have now, which was a little bit undisciplined, we ought to work towards having some of these kinds of principles. We ought to be sure we've got folks who are meeting frequently and establishing relationships and understanding expectations. We've talked about that. That's embodied in the teams we described before that Jason and Penny are leading. As you move across to the right, we talked about the need to have documented protocols for how we make decisions, how we prioritize things. In other words, some science to the decision making and some clarity on the communication. What to do when we get in trouble on projects. Who meets with whom? What do they talk about? How do we measure it? How do we look at it? What do we do in terms of instantiating formally our expectations in terms of service delivery and mediating conflict when we don't meet them? Finally, this only works if you also have the organization piece. It's great to have all these principles and ideas, but if you never have any meetings, it doesn't go anywhere. And it's important that this governance be delivered in a way that is multi-layered. And so we've been working very hard to establish this, and most of this is relatively new. And this isn't theory. You can't start with the chart and say, okay, that's good, let's go with it. You've got to roll up your sleeves, get out the whiteboard pens, and go to work. And so this is a screenshot from a meeting we had not too long ago where we said, you know, to get from a broken system to a better system, we need to be sure that we've got an ongoing program, we've got to have the right meetings, and importantly, we've got to put some of the science in place. The right-hand part of that chart would correspond very much to the right-hand part of this chart. And so if we look at something like prioritization, and the subject this particular day was around application development. Well, how do we decide which things to work on next? This is a classic challenge. Every organization that develops applications has some version of this. Well, we need to put a little more science in place than we have now, because you could have argued that a lot of what we were doing in terms of prioritization was this bottom part here. Let's drill in a little bit on this. We were prioritizing in many cases based on what folks said, we have to do it. And that carried the day. Or it'd be really nice to have this. And in some cases it was more formal. But what we're doing is replacing that system where have-to-dos and nice-to-haves rule the day with something that is a bit more dependent on some of these criteria at the top. The top one you could translate as, what is Washington encouraging us to do? Washington and entities like Washington. What do we need in terms of regulatory and compliance? That often is the first cut. You really do have to do that stuff. You've got HIPAA, FERPA, all the PAs that we have to deal with. Next line you could translate, roughly, as what does the Chancellor want us to do? And folks like the Chancellor. What are the executive goals for the institution? Whether they be by division or they be trans-institutional. What are we trying to get done on behalf of the leadership? Third, our actual constituencies, I would argue, the most important folks at some level, the students, faculty, staff, patients, administrators, all the folks who are the end beneficiaries of the good work that we do. And again, you got to go from a chart like that over to something that has really got some formalism to it. And so this was version 1 of a model. We threw it out there for consideration on the behalf of our customers. Here's some weightings. We think these are the right criteria. These we think might be good weightings for how to adjudicate. How far into the list of ideas you have for work we can do can we go based on the way it gets prioritized? And this is, an early version. It'll get refined, but we put it out there as an ante and something we can talk about. So now we've shifted the conversation in these meetings from what do we do next to how do we refine this tool? How do we think more precisely about it? And we know this will have to be refined over time. That's okay. Along the way, though, we've been able to establish these groups that meet. So the one at the top is populated by a lot of very senior folks, vice chancellors and their assistants and associates. The next group focuses on the things we've committed to do in terms of applications. So the vision from the top on where the priorities are in terms of process and data. Notice it doesn't even say applications yet. It's really about enterprise process work. And then the next layer prioritizes applications. And then within projects, we formalize the relationship back and forth. And we're doing this all across Vanderbilt, and I think it's a very good first step, more to do. We talked last time about the notion of setting the dials right. And I spent a fair amount of time on it. I want to quickly give you a view of how we're doing on this. And I described several of these dials last time. They have to do with traversing the continuum between things like what you do in-house and what you do with partners, what you do on a custom basis in terms of code, what you get from the package market. And most importantly, and most generally, it has to do with what you can do in a common way once on behalf of all of Vanderbilt, and what is more properly done in a unique way because the usage is legitimately specialized. And we've made headway on all of these. If you take a look at some of the work we do with partners, we have quite a lot of it going on. We've tried to aggregate it, formalize it, get a little more disciplined about when we do something ourselves and when we do something with a partner. In the case of custom and package, we've already made multiple decisions on each side. We've made decisions, for instance, with e-procurement to advance that and continue to develop and refine that tool because we think there's significant value for what we can do ourselves to serve Vanderbilt. In other cases, we've made decisions to go with packages. And I think that one plays right into the common and unique as well, because in many cases the way we'll decide has to do with how much broad applicability something has. Now, it's very important we get this right. And I think some of the examples are pretty startling. If we take a look at what we're doing with data centers and networks, you have a case where it's hard to make an effective argument that we need to do this bunches of times. It's a pretty tortured case to explain why we need 1,612 networks, which was the figure that Sal gave me when I asked, how many do we really have? I was expecting a number between 2 and 5. Sal's very precise. So 1,612, we're on our way to 1. We had at least 2 big networks before, and a couple others that were substantial. Same way on data centers. I knew we had 2 and we had a backup center downtown. And so when we went looking to be sure that's all we had, and we asked, well, how many raised floor data centers do we really have? A few more people sort of put their hand up, and it turned out, I think at last count we had 7. In many cases, without much awareness of one another. There's no great explanation for why we need that many. And so we're working very hard to get the right program where everything that can be common is common, under common management. In that case, Zafir's team is managing the data centers. And we've made great strides, still a lot more to do. I want to mention something else though, and that is around developers. Somewhere between last fall, when our function here began to be scrutinized in a big way, and now, we've managed to get a little bit confused. And I think we have a bit of a baby in bathwater situation, where some folks have said back to me, well, now that you don't need developers, and I always said, well, slow down. What do you mean? Well, I've heard we're going to do more with packages. Probably. We probably won't rewrite a travel system ourselves again, which was the famous example. There were others. But my view is anyone who concludes from that we don't need developers is deeply confused. Every project we have on the docket going forward, and we've taken a little pause to be sure we get this governance kicked in before we start launching more new ones, requires significant development activity. In fact, I think you could argue in a place as complicated as Vanderbilt, the level of integration required would say that we have a permanent need for a skilled and large development staff, even if we bought a package for everything from now on. It's too complicated a place. This isn't something where you buy something up, shrink wrap, load it up, and then Vandy's live. It doesn't make any sense to those of you that understand the business. And so as a personal encouragement to everybody who's a developer here, you can be sure that we have a very rich requirement for developers. Some of the work might be a little different. There might be a little more integration as a proportion of what we're doing. But I'll tell you, the meetings I go to with the governance groups would say that we've got a lot of activity kind of dammed up and ready to be released, a lot of latent demand for developing. And so I'm here to say, I'd love to be here to say that I am the #1 fan of developers. Can't do it. So I want to be transparent, I want to be honest with you. I think, though, I can probably assert that I'm the #2 fan of developers. Those of you that follow the IT industry and its leadership know that there is a famous and unassailable, unapproachable, permanent grand champion of being a fan of developers, and that's Steve Ballmer from over at Microsoft. For those of you that don't get the reference, in case there's a few of you that don't get it, I'm just going to show you why I'm sure that while I can be number 2 fan of developers, I probably can't quite be number 1. Here's Mr. Ballmer.
Developers, 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 developers.
I checked to see if I could get that excited about developers, and they told me I'd be taken off the health plan if I did. So, but I'm right there behind Steve, and I just ask you, please don't be confused. It is very important. We have a lot of higher tickets right now. We are actively looking for developers. If any of you know some additional developers who'd like to join Vanderbilt IT, let us know. Finally, consistent communications. Sounds like something you wouldn't have to do. But why would we fool around with that? We're tech people. We don't need to be eloquent in our communication. Well, as I asserted last time, we do. We have to work on our image. We have to work on clearly and consistently communicating our capabilities, setting expectations, and being very clear as we meet them or as we don't meet them to have the right kind of communications and conversations. And when we were together last time, we described a meeting, or excuse me, some coverage of that meeting. This is a picture from that. Would be up in the next few days, and indeed it appeared. That was part of a planned series, and we've had quite a number of other communications along the way that have begun to get the word out relative to Vanderbilt IT. Some of these are fairly big pieces of news, some of them are fairly small, but there's also something going on around the branding, if you will, the way we sign off. We use Vanderbilt IT everywhere we can. I told you all last time, if you sent me emails that had the name of a prior group, that if the email said NCS or ITS or TSS or EAI, or I hope I can pretty soon forget how to even do all those names, that I wouldn't even answer. We've abolished that. For the senior leadership team, they got it to a degree, but I put a curse jar in place where anytime they used a prior name, they had to put a quarter in. And I'll tell you, it was rough early days. Darryl had a little bit of a Tourette syndrome thing. He was cussing a lot early. We got it under control. We're just Vanderbilt IT, and we communicate that way with the community. And we've become more consistent. I've noticed already people have changed the way they refer to us. And I think it's essential that we enforce that consistency and get out there. We've also had the chance to co-announce a number of things. In this case, this is something that enrollment management did, had to do with the ability to get functionality to the handheld for students. Sounds like a simple requirement. Students would like to be able to drop, add, change, look at their classes, find out where the buildings are, get directions from their phone. Any of us who have people of student age would understand if an institution could not provide this, they would pretty quickly be seen as sort of not getting it. So we announced this together with Doug Christiansen's team and another branding opportunity, a chance to talk about what we're doing, and we're going to keep this up and pick up the pace as we move along. Communicating isn't just sending out newsletters and doing things on the website and all the things that Melanie Moran and the communications team with Beth Fortune's group helps us with. It's also what we do personally. And so I've encouraged the leadership team, and I know they've been encouraging many of you, spend time with customers, have regular meetings, talk about what we can do, understand requirements. Some of the work that Jason's team does all the time, we all need to do. And so I can promise their diaries and my own diary are full with examples of doing exactly that kind of work. I've had the chance to get in front of a lot of requirements rather than have it be something where it's thrown over the transom a year from now to say, oh, we thought you guys could support this. Can you host this application? Can you do this? One of the most gratifying areas for me has been the chance to get to know a little bit about what we're doing relative to digital education, online education. And so I've been to a series of meetings about this. It's an exciting area, one that Vanderbilt is in a leadership position on and intending to continue to lead in. And in fact, the recent announcement of the Vanderbilt Institute for Digital Learning really puts a mark on that in terms of our evolution. I'm thrilled to have today, as our guest speaker, leadership from VIDL, V-I-D-L, and to introduce that leader, I'm going to ask Jason Roosh to come up from our team and introduce Doug Fisher.
Morning, everybody. It's great to see you all. For those of you I have yet to meet, my name is Jason Roosh, and I'm the Director of the Customer Relations and Project Portfolio Group. And I have the privilege this morning to introduce Doug Fisher. I thought this morning I'd start out with the old speaker standby of a joke, but then I realized that most of my jokes would end up with a closed-door meeting and lots of paperwork. So I decided to ask my kids, right? Kids are funny. They're 5 and 7 years old. So I went to my kids and I said, hey guys, Dad needs a joke for his friends at work. What do you got? So they told me a joke, and I said, guys, I can't tell potty jokes at work. That's not going to go over too well. And I said, all right, try again, guys. And this time, no potty jokes. So they gave me another joke, and I said, guys, do you ever even listen to anything that I say? No potty jokes. So finally, they got me a good one. Why did the chicken cross the playground? To get to the other slide. All right, there you go. So now, by comparison, whatever Doug has to say this morning will seem downright remarkable. So back in, I guess it was 1996, I signed up for CS 201, Data Structures and Algorithms, with Professor Doug Fisher. And back in those days, the closest we got to multimedia was Doug standing there like this, going side to side to illustrate iterating through an array. Now, needless to say, yeah, you remember that? You may still do that. I mean, it's very useful. Nowadays, things have changed substantially, and Doug has actually been a leader amongst the faculty in terms of integrating technology into the curriculum, and hence the appointment to Vital. So I thought I'd just read through Doug's bio and then let him tell you more about it. Doug is the founding director of the Vanderbilt Institute for Digital Learning. He has been integrating online resources into the campus classes for a few years and pounding the pavement around campus, investigating many disciplines for 26 years. Doug is also the founding faculty director of the Warren College, where he hopes to utilize online resources to blend formal and informal learning in the residence halls. He's been a faculty member in residence for many years, living among students in the residence halls, promoting interactions between them, students, faculty, and staff outside the classroom. I can't imagine living with students. He received the Chancellor's Cup in 2006 for his work. He and his wife, Patricia, are now living in McGill Hall and just hosted the 9th annual McGill chocolate tasting. So we'll have to see how we can get some invites to that next year. Doug is an associate professor of computer science and of computer engineering with research and education activity in artificial intelligence, machine learning, computational creativity, and applications of computing to advance environmental and societal sustainability. He has served in many science and service and leadership roles in these professional communities. From 2007 to 2010, he served as the program director at the National Science Foundation in the Directorate of Computer and Information Science and Engineering. And in 2010, received the NSF's Director's Award for Excellence with a citation that read, "In recognition of his intellectual leadership, his contributions to innovation, in merit review, his leadership in the development of CISE's scientific stance on the role of computing research in energy and the environment, and his deep commitment to the advancement of science and engineering." Doug also rides a 1988 Honda Hawk, which has been sitting for far too long, and both he and his Hawk need a long, long ride. Professor Doug Fisher.
So thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. This is a special audience. Jason indicated a number of you are former students, and I have sought out the help of many of you over the 26 years that I've been here. You know who you are. I'll point out Andy and David, though. I've been going to them for 26 years as the first stop for help. And so it is a special group. So I thought I could share chocolate tastings and motorcycles with this bunch. But you also hear a dog barking after about 15 minutes, and that's when I've got to make sure I wrap up. Let's see. So I want to begin with a grand challenge, which I think is one of the things that gets people very excited about education nowadays, higher education nowadays. And this broad, grand challenge is about personalizing education with technology so that we can teach what people need to know based on the learning styles that are best suited to them, when they will need to learn, and direct it sort of in a semi-automated way to who needs to learn it. This might be counterintuitive that technology can actually improve a kind of personalized education, but this group probably doesn't have a hard time accepting that the only way you're going to scale up this notion of a great tutor is through some kind of technology that people can sit in front of and work with. And so I think this idea of personalizing education and customizing education is one of the big dreams that drives a lot of what I'm going to talk about today. For me, this journey in using technology started at NSF, and I know I called upon some of you. I probably called Andy and David first, but they directed me elsewhere. The database class was not going to get taught because I was in Washington, D.C., and they couldn't hire a database faculty member, so I was approached by the senior advisor at the time, which I think was Julie Adams, saying, please teach our seniors database. So we organized the class from 3 to 5 p.m. Central Time, which was 4 to 6 p.m. or 6:30 Eastern Time, and I would teach from NSF. I started off using, on the left, teaching from the NSF Conference Center, which overlooked the lovely atrium there, using rather clunky technology. Quickly moved to a web-based approach, web-based video conferencing, and I would simply do it from my office there. What I learned, and it was at the time somewhat counterintuitive, that I actually felt a greater sense of presence with the students. And I think other other faculty that have done this kind of thing have experienced the same kind of thing. When I used the web-based technology, the students' faces were in a tile right on my 2 large screens at NSF. I was looking at each of them in the eye, and they were looking at me in the eye. And I felt better connected. Not because I was one-on-one, well, because I was one-on-one, but it was mediated by technology. It actually led to a closer, more intimate experience. I was also impressed and surprised by the excellent online resources, because you can imagine that the thought of lecturing on database over Skype or VC or Google Hangouts, I used VC at the time, could be kind of clunky. And I wanted to find online resources that students could use. There were no database online lectures then. But I just did discover some excellent math material. I mean, really good stuff. At the time I first looked at this gentleman's post, because I was doing this research from the Vanderbilt DC office, actually, and I was looking through YouTube, and this person probably had 30,000 views at the time. He's now got over 500,000. And if you want to learn by integration by parts, go to this guy, okay, and watch his video. I will always want to give an inspirational lecture one-on-one, but video for a nuts and bolts lecture is a lot better. I really believe that. For the nuts and bolts, do it on video, watch it over and over, as long as it takes. After getting back to Vanderbilt, this announcement came out that Stanford was launching 3 massively open online courses, and I'll come back to those later. Machine learning, introduction to databases, and introduction to artificial intelligence. This announcement came out in fall 2011, and in spring 2012, I was teaching database and machine learning. And I thought, if these lectures are still available, I'm going to have my students watch those and come into class, and we're going to have a lot more fun. This NSF experience had planted a seed that you could really use online resources to good effect. And in fact, that's what I did. And you've probably heard a lot about flipping the classroom. My experience is somewhat, I think, typical of other faculty's experience. Students would watch the online lectures by Jennifer Whitem, which were available online. We made sure we followed appropriate terms of service. But when I first did this, Stanford just had the lectures up. There was no Coursera, there was no edX, there was no anything else. They were just there and freely available, no terms of service. Watch them come into class and we'll do other things. And they did. And the other thing, and I would play this for you, but it's just a lecture. You can see her face. You can see that she's interacting with the screen. There's some PowerPoint. Students would come in, they would be quizzed, and we would flip the classroom. Students would engage in active learning. And for this particular example, what they would do is they would watch a video by Hans Rosling on visualizing data. You guys, how many of you have seen this video of the almost 6 million? It's a great video. You need to watch it. It's extremely entertaining. Students would watch this video on 5-minute video on visualizing data and then spend the rest of the class reverse engineering a database that was necessary to support or sufficient to support the visualization that was going on here using the principles that they had learned about in the lecture. If you're watching Hans Rosling instead of Doug Fisher give a nuts and bolts lecture in class, it's no big surprise that Doug Fisher's instructor ratings and course ratings are going to go up. I was a little worried about this, but students, I think, gave me, and you can look at this, I've done this kind of flipping for other classes. The summary observation here at the bottom, my instructor and course ratings never went down. They typically went up. They typically went up by a considerable amount, and they have stayed up. Students prefer viewing, it's not so much I think they prefer viewing the lectures outside of class. They prefer doing active learning in class. They prefer participating actively with their fellows. They prefer my going around and answering questions one-on-one with them than having me lecture from PowerPoint at the front of a class. They're just a lot more engaged. Again, so now part of the broader story leading into the formation of Vital. Again, this machine learning announcement in fall 2011, machine learning, AI, databases, the massively open online courses. In spring 2012, the Chancellor convened a social media internet committee to look at how Vanderbilt could leverage online and other digital learning technologies to include perhaps portable technology as well for its classes and for the educational experience. Melanie was on this committee, I was on this committee, a number of other people I'm sure you recognize here. One thing we discovered is that Vanderbilt, different communities were already using a lot of digital learning technology. We just didn't all know about it. So nursing was doing things that engineering didn't know about. Engineering was doing things that medicine didn't know about, and all the way around. And so we learned about all this neat stuff, and we endorsed the position we endorsed was that Vanderbilt should be exploring these technologies and trying them on to see how they work to make ourselves a more robust institution. Even if we decided not to go with some of these technologies were things we had to make decisions about and had to be aware of and learn about for our future. Whether we chose to use them or not use them in the future, we had to explore them and become well-versed on them. Shortly after this, Vanderbilt announced a agreement with Coursera to offer a number of classes. This was a very big deal. And these classes are, as many of you probably know, but perhaps some of you don't. I'm always surprised about how many people have not heard about MOOCs yet. Massive open online courses in which you are literally teaching tens of thousands of people, in some cases, at a time. This is an example of a massive open online course. This is the first one that Vanderbilt offered. Within a week, a second was being offered. This was a 10-week course, pattern-oriented software architectures. Probably I spammed this audience or had someone else spam this audience announcing this course, suggesting that we might all take it together. I was so excited about the possibility of a 500 people coming together, taking an online course together, and learning about some neat stuff. 35,000 people were, well, you can see a typical format. There are video lectures. There are quizzes embedded within these lectures, so that the student who is watching this video just doesn't watch a video, but they are forced to stop and think at a number of places throughout the video, take a quiz before moving on. There are discussion boards. People from around the world are commenting on the course. When some of these courses go live, they might go live at midnight Central Time. But by 5 a.m. Central Time, all the problems in that course have been found by people in Europe and Asia and fed back through the discussion boards to the instructors and TAs who are sort of scampering to fix them all. There are a lot of other reasons why we would want our local students and faculty to be participating in a global community besides debugging our courses. I mean, there's nothing like participating in a global community to indicate to our students the world is really flat. It is competitive, and ideally it is collaborative too, and you are embedded in this global discussion even as you are working together on campus with your professors and your student colleagues. 35,000 students initially enrolled in this. This was a highly technical course. A fair number of students, over 1,500 students completed to the satisfaction of the faculty. They received statements of accomplishment, and there were a fair number, almost 4,000, who would be what I would call myself typically in these active auditors. I didn't do all the homeworks, but I watched the lectures. And there is the dog. This is a heat map of locations throughout the world in which students were taking these courses. The dog indicated, by the way, I have 5 minutes left. And you can see, and that kind of heat map is typical. These are the first set of courses that were offered at Vanderbilt. Across all three of those, over 155,000 had enrolled. Over 12,000 completed to some level, and we had a lot of people actively participating in some way. The two most recent ones, the ones that are currently live now, one is Jay Clayton's course on online games and narrative. I had the honor of pressing the button to set that thing live within 15 minutes. There were 1,000 people engaged in the discussion boards, and this was the very first comment. That bottom comment was the very first comment that came out of the discussion boards. And this is still a group that's very excited. It does take a village to produce this, and when you learn about the story, the backstory of how Vanderbilt produced these courses, you realize that, there were really heroic efforts going on. People were picking up the phones, can you step up to the plate for the good of the institution? And people did it. And they did it, so far as I can tell, for the good of the institution and for the good of their friends who were picking up the phone calling them. I need your help. Please help. And they do. And it really is an ennobling story. A fair number, I'm guessing, certainly a number of people on the right-hand side are members of Vanderbilt IT who have stepped up to the plate as well. It's been a great service. The other online course that we have currently is data management, and now in week 3. You might guess this is a considerably different audience than the online game audience, but it's still an active audience. There are a number of things I can say here, but I do want to indicate just strengths and weaknesses. I would just point out a few here. Learning about learning, educational data mining, the third one down, is one of the great strengths that a lot of people talk about. You have thousands of people taking these materials, and you can look at all their behavioral data, and you can find patterns in that behavioral data. And then you can use the lessons learned from that behavioral data, perhaps for your online course. There are weaknesses. As we have learned, these come with the amount of time and, to some extent, the amount of money required to produce these up front is great. This is a statement from one of our dedicated videographers whose name I didn't reveal. It takes a lot of time to produce these courses. And this is something we want to try and get a handle on. Lots of opportunities in this space, though. I would just say, I would summarize this as giving more bang to the buck for our students. I'm talking about our students on campus as well as students around the world. I would also indicate that MOOCs, a lot of talk about whether they will ever make a profit. I think of MOOCs as lost leaders for other kinds of things like online degree programs that Vanderbilt is probably going to be getting into. Many opportunities here, other opportunities. I'm going to skip past these because I am running out of time. These following slides simply indicate that even back in October 2012, you could essentially get a computer science degree online for free if it all counted for college credit. If I ever teach machine learning again, I'm going to draw from a number of online courses and some of the material that I've done myself. And this is one of the most exciting things about the online space that I really get excited about, this ability to customize. Different professors can use the online resources and customize their courses in ways that they couldn't necessarily do before. Vanderbilt Institute. This is our charge. Our charge is several-fold. One is to enhance on-campus education through digital and online means. We want to promote research amongst our faculty in different areas. Educational data mining is one example. To some extent, we've just been so busy getting these courses online that we haven't really been as thoughtful and deliberative as we'd like about the research opportunity. We want to oversee and encourage community outreach, and that includes our massive online course portfolio. And vital, and I would say that, and that's my time, I would say that vital is about, the Vanderbilt Institute for Digital Learning is about resource sharing and brokering discussions across campus, to a large extent, I think, with Vanderbilt IT, about coming up with campus, university-wide solutions to our problems, sharing resources, identifying common resources, identifying common needs, and streamlining that. The current organization of Vital, which may change. I'm the faculty director. We have a faculty advisory council. There are assistant directors for production with different foci. Those on sort of traditional technical production, others on instructional design. We have someone who's focused exclusively on research for education, coming and looking at the data and looking at other research opportunities with our courses. We have a grad fellows program, senior videographer, and then, of course, doing something like this requires not only you think about what your institute is supposed to do, but what it's not supposed to do. And so we're interfacing, of course, with a lot of groups on campus, including Vanderbilt IT. This is the current staff. You'll get a chance to meet us. I have not corrected these slides. Our staff completely came online officially yesterday. So we now have a complete staff. I was a staff of one for the longest time, and let me tell you, it was rough going, but thank goodness they have arrived. Website going live soon. These are our first-year priorities. Make sure that the MOOCs go well, and really identifying cost-effective workflows. We've learned a lot from this past experience, but whereas it may have taken 300 hours in the past to do a MOOC, we can probably do that in 100 hours if we identify and figure out the appropriate flow of things, from pre-production to production to evaluation. And then, of course, measuring the costs and benefits for these given ideal workflows, not the heroic but yet ad hoc volunteer efforts that have gone on to date. Coming up with appropriate infrastructure, finding appropriate infrastructure both for video material and data is something that I'm sure we're going to be working with VUIT about. List of resources, I guess I will finish there. Sorry to go over.
Okay. Thank you very much, Doug. So, in appreciation for your time and effort, we have a T-shirt to make you an honorary member of the band.
This is excellent. I will wear it with pride.
Excellent. Good job. So thank you, Doug. We appreciate your support. And Merritt Chandler, I believe. Here she comes. And I promise that's not the shirt that Merritt was wearing. So we got you a new one.
Do I have a clicker?
It's right there.
Ah, nice. Okay. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. I'm Merritt Chandler. I am the coordinator of training and development here at Vanderbilt IT. I've worked with many of you guys before, and those of you I have not worked with, I look forward to working with in the future. So what I have up here behind me is the visual representation of results of a study that was done about a year ago. You may have seen them before. This study was done by Bain. They came in and they surveyed university IT staff and medical center IT staff, so what we were before. And what they came up with was a whole bunch of different things. But as you can see, one of the most important things you guys asked for was training. So I'm here to help you guys with that. What I'd like to talk about first are some of the resources that we've used in the past and that I hope to leverage in the future. So in the past, we've sent people to a whole bunch of different things. We've sent people to places like New Horizons for training, places like Global Knowledge. We've also sent people to conferences like SANS conferences, places like Microsoft TechEd, Oracle's Open World Conference. We've brought people in to train as well. We've brought in VMware for training, virtualization training. We've brought in Red Hat for Linux training. We have a company that comes in and regularly does SharePoint training and is still doing it on a regular basis. We also have a lot of talent here at Vanderbilt. We have HR that is available to teach classes. We have organizations other than HR on campus who teach classes, and these are available through the Learning Exchange. We also have a lot of talent within Vanderbilt IT. We have people who are experts in ITIL. We have people who are experts in project management. And in the future, I would like to have those people available to do study groups. So we can leverage the talent, share the talent that we have, and have those people share with Vanderbilt IT. And if people want to get certified in areas that we have talented people available to teach in, we can do that in the future. We also have a lot of online training. We have Microsoft IT Academy available to everybody at Vanderbilt IT. We have Skillsoft. We have CBT Nuggets for people who prefer to learn in a video environment. And we have Safari Books that has a library of technical manuals for anybody who needs it. So I want to know how we can leverage those in the future, as well as how we've leveraged those in the past. And the best way for me to do that is for you guys to tell me what you need. So I'm going to be sending out a survey, and I want everybody in this room to respond. I want to have 500 responses to this survey. I want you to tell me what you need to grow. The survey is going to be coming out within the next week, and you're going to see it in your email. It's going to be entirely confidential. I promise. I'm not going to tell your manager. I'm not going to be sharing this information with HR. But the results of this survey are going to be driving our training plan, not just for the next couple of months, but for the next several years. We're going to be looking at this with business strategies, and this is going to tell us how we're going to train you guys for the future. So this is why I need you to respond to the survey. This is why I need everybody in the room to respond. But please do. If you have any questions about the survey, if you have any questions about training in general, please feel free to contact me. If you need access to any of those things that I talked about, I'm in email, I'm in Outlook, I'm on Link. Please feel free to give me a call. Feel free to send me an IM. But I'm available, and don't hesitate to ask me any questions. All right? Thank you, guys. I'm going to hand this back over to John.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, Merritt. And I do appreciate in advance everybody participating in the survey. We know there are pockets. What we're trying to do is find out where we have some scale. It would be, for instance, helpful if we could bring certain things to campus because we knew we had enough folks who wanted to do the same kind of study. And I'll put in my request for freelance basics along the way as well. So I said earlier we would not only hear about our plans for education, but actually do some educating. And we're going to move to that phase of the discussion now. We're going to have a group now of our senior leaders. And you'll recognize all these folks. We've got Monroe Leslie from RISC and Andrew Hutchinson from our customer service. And we've got Dave Matthews from Network and Sal Ortega from Security. They're all also very qualified stagehands. You could throw me my water. I might need that. And what we're going to do is pick up on some of the themes that we talked about last time we were together relative to the consumerization of IT. You might remember the lady falling into the fountain, the video we had last time, and the serious point we were making at the same time around how as more and more devices get out there in everyone's hands, certainly all the folks we intend to serve, that there's a lot of pressure on our systems and capability, a lot of pressure on the networks, a lot of pressure relative to some of the unforeseen consequences of having all these devices and all the expectation, the very high expectations people have in terms of ease of use. And so it's a very interesting area, and I think reflective of the panel we have here, it's one that crosses a whole bunch of different domains for us relative to some technical considerations, some management considerations, and certainly impact on risk. And so what I'd like to do, if we can, is just bounce around a little bit among everybody and talk about how some of the trends are emerging, what we're seeing out there, and then after we establish a bit of the landscape, a little bit about what we're doing, what our response is at Vanderbilt IT. And I think to start off, maybe we'd go to Andrew.
Sure. Some of the trends we're seeing are really around convergence. You know, we heard Doug talk about distance learning and people from around the world participating in these classes. Last night, my daughter was sitting at Panera apparently when I got home and doing her homework using a SharePoint site with her for her class. And the difference between work and personal life and where you work and how you work and what time you work is really undergoing a convergence. And people expect to be able to connect and to interact with their devices anywhere, anytime. That's the main trend. I mean, we all rely on our phones. I carry my phone with me everywhere, all the time. I have to have it. I have my email. I've got my calendar. I've got all kinds of apps, and I expect that to work everywhere.
Is that an iPhone, and did you update it 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago today, at 1 in the afternoon, Apple released the iOS 7 update, which immediately our internet bandwidth jumped 30% higher than any other given day, and took a couple days for it to get back down to normal, but it eventually did. And that's one of the challenges that we're seeing from the network side is, you know, everybody's bringing their devices and their gadgets between home and work and everywhere, and they expect them to function no matter where you are, 24/7, and the applications that ride on them as well. One of the things that we've been kind of chasing recently is the bonjour issue, and we'll get that resolved, but then there'll be something else poking its head around the corner after that. And so this is a big challenge for the network team, is dealing with all the different gadgets and applications.
Quite a bit of direct impact of consumerization. So the bonjour is from Apple TV, which we need, and we have to keep Netflix going because that's the other big network usage when we're not downloading iOS 7. The expectations are really high, and I'm guessing most of our folks have way more than the one device. And so, Andrew, you talked about carrying an iPhone around. What else do you have in your personal arsenal?
I've got an iPad, I have a Kindle, I have a laptop, I've got a lot of things, and my kids have them too. I mean, my youngest son has an iPad mini that he walks around with, playing games mostly, which is
But you expect when you come to campus, all that to connect, all that to be authorized where appropriate to do the work you do, even if the same device is something that you're getting other things done in your life. And so we have a lot of good actors, if you will. We'll put Andrew, at least momentarily, in the good actor category, who we want to enable. That's a huge stress and strain on the network. And meanwhile, we've got to be sure we don't let bad actors in, because there are a lot of those folks as well, which I think, Sal, brings us to your domain. You're dealing more with those guys, right?
Yes, and that's definitely a pressure that we're feeling, is we have these bad actors, these bad guys that are making the headlines every other week. They're taking down the NASDAQ with denial of service attacks and taking down New York Times with denial of service attacks. And the reasons they're doing it is they're very financially motivated. It's cash in their pocket to steal sensitive information. It's cash in their pocket to steal your username and password. It helps them progress their next scam that they're after. So we have that pressure, those not playing by the rules. This is why we have over 1 million attacks a day detected across this institution, and anywhere between 70 and 100 compromised systems across this institution in a day. So that's one pressure, those not playing by the rules. And then let's boomerang back to what Andrew and David were saying around the mobility and consumerization of devices. We have 97,000 potential devices attached to this network at any given time, upward north of that. And,
So we got 40,000-ish if we add up all the student staff, et cetera. We got 90-some thousand devices. So you're not the only one with more than one.
Yes, definitely. And, but there's this expectation that this is like your home, but really this is an enterprise, and it's not your home. And Dave, what's our internet connection now?
About 3.5 gig.
Yeah. Who has 3.5 gig to their home? Nobody. I mean, some of us would like to have 3.5 gig to our home, but, nobody has.
Zephyr might.
Yeah. It's somebody, him or Andrew, I could see having that at their house. But nobody has that. It also allows us to connect to over 70 countries every 1 to 2 minutes. When Professor Fisher put up that heat map, I'm sure some of my instant response guys looked and like, well, that looks a lot like our map that we have of where data's going any given time in 1 or 2 minutes.
So it's not just a phenomenon of this particular MOOC kind of course. We're that interconnected with the world all the time.
All the time, yes, sir. And
That's
then we have
terrific.
this third pressure that we're feeling, and that is this compliance and regulatory pressure. Those are saying you have to play by the rules, or we will fine you. And so you have these three big pressures in that security space that are continually pressing on us from all directions.
So that's interesting. So the worry about unauthorized access and all these bad actors, it isn't just some kind of technical theory or a sort of abstract consideration. This goes right into the risk agenda, because as an institution, we don't safeguard information because it's a nice thing to do. We do it for that reason, and because we've got a lot of things to comply with, a lot of risk management, which I think, Monroe, probably goes right to your domain.
Yeah, absolutely. Risk, you think about that, and really ultimately it's the balance of being able to operate and do it at the right manner and the right level. It's interesting that Andrew talked about his family last night. I was trying to text him, and we had a little bit of a risk issue happen, that some of his family had overlapped on his Apple ID, and his daughter was getting my text message. And I thought, wow, that's pretty interesting. That was a little risky. But nonetheless, honestly, though, we're not unique in this consumerization of IT. All organizations are facing that. And it's not unique for us. You think about a risk. A lot of people want to think of the negative side or the potential damage when you think about risk and controlling and things of that nature. But the truth is with every risk, there's an opportunity. So, I think that's kind of the flip side of the coin, is to sometimes...
Well, I guess that's the usual relationship, right? Risk and opportunity sort of in balance with each other. And it's probably good to hear you say that. So if we can move from the sort of doom and gloom and all the things that we have to worry about towards those opportunities, because our response to all these trends that the team has laid out here is probably even more important, and the chance to turn some of these into opportunities for us. And so are those things, do you have examples of that kind of work?
Oh, absolutely. I'm very excited about us coming together and getting an opportunity. There's some future things, obviously, they're going to be encouraging, and that's to be able to do a risk assessment across the organization, more unified. That's a future thing, but really something that's happened just recently, and just by us coming together, just to get rid of a frustration that was for several of us that have been working on PCI compliance. And our PCI compliance, that's for the payment card industry, and there are requirements for where you are. We take credit cards as an organization, and we take payment, obviously. You can think of Vanderbilt sort of like a mini city, and the cards range from everywhere from taking them in patient accounting all the way to Commodore card to a gift shop, or even for athletics for us to buy our tickets to support our teams.
So do we have a lot of those if you add them up?
We do. We actually, it's a great question. We have over 230 merchant accounts across the organization, and our bank wants us to meet, to be compliant with that. We've got to parse those out and get those organized in the right manner. So we've come up with a strategy, and we had a strategy all along that we felt like was going to help us, but we got down to trying to get the last difficult ones compliant, and just by us coming together, we're able to have some governance, pull some trigger, and actually make that happen. So now we're providing, and we're looking at the areas that need to do card transactions, and then we look at the roles that are involved with that, of the people that need to do that. And then from that, we look for how can we have quality of data, have it easy to use and efficient, and all that balance, but at the same time be compliant and be able to protect it. So, and I know protection's something, Sal's right.
Yeah, and the protection and who you are in this network is becoming more and more important. Recently, some things that in security we've done is we've taken the steps to lay foundational things on identifying and detecting who is compromised, moving away from what device is compromised, not only focusing on what device is compromised, but also looking at who is a subject of the compromise. And then when we switch to the protection side, over the last 18 months, the network security team has been working very hard on the firewall protections and the firewall service. They've been standardizing their firewalls. They've been upgrading the firewalls. Many of you have seen the data center firewalls get upgraded in the last few months. So it's all those protection elements. We have 126 firewalls across the institution. We continue to reduce that firewall set to help us reduce the complexity in the environment, which is extremely important to make Dave's one network goal in a reality.
Well, to me, it's interesting. So you're trying to get from where it's just a device to who it is. And I know you talked, Dave, a lot about getting from who to what role. In other words, deciding who has access on what priority level to which kind of services is something that relates as much to what their job is and what they're trying to do as it does to who they are or what they've got in their hand. But the balance point between simplifying, fewer networks, fewer firewalls, fewer of everything, and more simple and clear system with more and more demand, more people wanting to do more things is the real tension point, I think, that probably connects all this.
Right.
At least I'm sure that's how it feels if you're trying to run the network.
We're decreasing firewalls and we're decreasing networks and going to one network with one experience for a user no matter where you are across the enterprise. But at the same time, we're increasing the on-ramps to the network. So, I mean, we have 25,000 users connecting to the wireless network today, and that keeps growing. But in the last 9 months, we've added 600 access points to the network. And now we're looking at covering outdoor areas more than we are today, elevators, stairwells, and actually, we have a test going on right now in one of the shuttle buses, so that we could provide 802.11 Wi-Fi in shuttle buses around between Vanderbilt and 100 Oaks or wherever the shuttle buses
I saw a thing on TV this morning that said millennials, this is the first time ever that the younger generation is less interested in driving than the generation before. And the explanation, I think this was on Morning Joe with Meacham and the other Vanderbilt folks, they were talking about, well, why could that possibly be? And someone said, well, that's because they want someone else to drive them around so they can do Facebook the whole time. Because it's hard to do that when you're driving. Not that you can't do it, but it's much harder. So
I try not to.
Try not to. So it feels like that takes us kind of back full circle then, Andrew, to some of what you were talking about in terms of access and this proliferation that we're seeing.
Well, I think the main thing is that people want these things to work wherever they are. The reason we're looking at putting wireless on a shuttle bus is because people don't like to be out of touch between one location and the other. So they want a continuity of service, and they want to be able to know what to do when they have issues or when they need to figure out how to make something work. I think that what we can do is we can try to align things, make it simple. Your first experience here at Vanderbilt was going to employee orientation and going up and saying, if I need help, call here, otherwise else do this, otherwise if I'm in this group, call this group. And it was fairly confusing.
Oh, there were no
So-
phone numbers.
Yeah, and there were no phone numbers, so, call one of these places, but you just have to ask somebody what the number is. So what we, one thing we want to do is simplify the interface for the users so they have one place to call eventually, and we're working towards that. We can't do everything at once. One thing we just finished up doing that some of you may have worked on is we had multiple change processes across the organization. So we've worked on aligning those, trying to get to one change process. We break things when we change things, and so we want to have a way that we can coordinate the way everybody is implementing and communicating changes. We talked about doing that for probably, I've said 5 years, but I apparently have been corrected, it's closer to 7. And we did it in 5 weeks, once we had all the groups together. So,
That's a great example of some of what I talked about in the beginning. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Well, I don't technically hear a dog barking, but I think we are getting close to the end of our time. So I thought maybe you guys could give us each one kind of a takeaway. So, what's one takeaway, a sentence or two that everybody can use, something we all ought to have on our minds relative to the part of this that you touch. So let's maybe go with Sal.
So one thing I think is that we should be very excited. As one VUIT comes together, since I've been here, I think we stand the best chance of securing Vanderbilt as an institution that I've ever seen. It's going to take work. There will be some sweat and some tears, but it'll take more work after that. But we have an excellent chance for the first time to really bring the security in this institution to the next level.
Best chance ever to secure Vanderbilt.
Yes, sir.
I like it. Dave?
Well, what I see is we have this big evolution going on with the consumerization and all the things that we're doing with the network and with security. And there will certainly be no shortage of work for a long time on this. We have a lot of work to do with not just the network team, but all IT teams working together. We have a lot of...
We need developers?
Developers. Definitely developers. With authentication and directory services to go more to a role-based network access, but also interfacing with our customers and doing communications and working very closely with Sal's team. And so there's a lot of work for our whole team and teams to move forward with this.
So this is going to be team play.
Yes.
Everybody's engaged.
It has to be.
Andrew, what do you got?
I'd reflect the same thing. I think we have a big opportunity to bring together a lot of processes that
Well,
have been...
technically, you're not allowed to just say you'd have, like, he took your answer.
I can't.
No, you got to have your own answer. Now, you can say, I'm expanding on Dave's answer. I like what Dave said, but I think I can take it to the next degree. That makes Dave look a little bad, but,
I'll pick up where Dave left off.
There, perfect. Yeah, that's what we're looking for.
No, I think that for the first time since I've been here, we really have an opportunity to work together across all these teams, to align all of our processes, to get rid of the we's and the they's and say it's just us. We're going to look at what we're doing and the ways we're doing things. We're going to pick one way, and we're going to all decide that we're going to do it that way.
One way, no we's and they's. When I opened, I talked about the number of times we've already found teams that are actually a lot like each other and reposition them. And I know you've had some import in that regard to your group, and you've had some export in regard. So making big headway on that, I like that. So Monroe, you've had the most time to think about it, so can you bring us home with a powerful takeaway?
Well, I don't know if powerful or not, but I guess when you roll
At least
around-
not a risky one.
Yeah, well, true. And you roll back around to the guy on the stage with the most gray hair, and what is he worried about from a risk perspective? I don't know that my hair is going to go back to the brown color.
Do
But
we have to tell
that's-
HR if he says that about himself?
I'm okay, I think, right? Anyway, I think really to kind of wrap it up is just getting the right balance for us to get the right, the ability to, when somebody walks in with technology and says, I need this technology to work, that we really understand what they're really asking for. Maybe it's not that exact technology, and it's for us to be able to look at the quality, ease of use, effectiveness, and get the protection there as well, but also get that balance covered that we're applying to the right device. Maybe we can, and I believe coming together realistically, I jokingly say we could raise to a gold standard, but really a black and gold Vanderbilt standard. And really, I believe we can. you know, it's going to take every one of us in this room. I'm honored to be a part of the team. A lot of you I don't know and would love to meet, so if you do have things that you're concerned about from a risk perspective, I would definitely entertain talking with you because I'm going to need your help. So.
All right, I like it. So we get the best chance ever to make this place secure, confront all these things, do it as one team, maybe with one number, gold and black standard. I love it. So I thank everybody for coming together and talking about this. I think it's good. It's a good example of how interconnected some of these agendas are and how interconnected our teams are. You know, we've been very segmented, kind of balkanized over the years in all of our pockets, and increasingly we have a chance not just to have these one-off kind of bank shots between different things we do, but the chance to really integrate in front of our customers on behalf of Vanderbilt. So it's terrific. Guys, thanks for joining me. Okay, while our expert stagehands unstage the stage, makes a little room, because we're going to need the room, because the next part I mentioned in the beginning was going to be some celebration, and Kim Mallory is going to join me in acknowledging and celebrating the service of some of our long-term employees. Kim?
Good morning. Thank you, John.
Excellent.
So, as an organization, we may have only been together for about a year now, but we have a lot of employees that have been at Vanderbilt University for many years. So we'd like to celebrate the Staff Service Awards this morning. And so a little bit of logistics. What we'll do is we'll call you to the stage by your group, 5, 10, 15 years, and even up to the 35-year honoree that we have this morning. And you'll approach the table where Angela's standing, and she will present you with a gift. Then you'll come up on the stage and be greeted by Vice Chancellor Lutz. And then we'll have everyone in that group will stand in the center of the stage and hold. Then once we have everybody on the stage, we'll want to acknowledge individually. So I'll be calling each person's name, and they'll just step forward a few steps so that everybody can wave and see you, and then we'll have a great applause for the group at the end, take a quick photo with Vice Chancellor Lutz, and we'll move on to the next group. So we'll start with the 5-year honorees.
Sounds like a plan.
Would the 5-year honorees please come up?
Can the band do some spontaneous and incidental music? Maybe next, just a little keyboard solo thing? Congratulations. 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 Congratulations, sir. Congratulations.
We may need a few rows.
Congratulations.
It's getting kind of tight.
Congratulations. That's a handshake. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Need to come over further.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Absolutely. The band's pretty good. They did all right, didn't they?
We'll need folks to actually come in.
Congratulations.
Oh, good. They're going to move.
Congratulations. Appreciate it. Congratulations. You guys got to keep moving down. We got a lot of 5s. Congratulations. Thank you, sir. Congratulations. Hey, what are you part of the team too, huh? Dual purpose. Congratulations. Yeah. Yes, indeed. Congratulations. I'm going to walk down here now.
Okay.
We got a lot of tall guys in the back. You guys can rearrange a little bit if you have to.
This is what happens when you have 26 people.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
All right.
Congratulations. Well, I don't know if it's working out that way. Congratulations. Congratulations. Wow. I don't know. You guys probably know sort algorithms even better than I do. But like, I think we have to compare you and you, and then you and you, and go through a whole lot of stuff. But if the even taller people, as we call them, could take a step back and rearrange a tiny bit, let's get ready for the photo. Come over in the middle. All right, that looked pretty good. Can you be seen?
So I think what we'll do is probably instead of having folks step forward, maybe just raise their hands when I call their names so that We don't have people
Works for
from the
me.
back row. So we have, today we have Andy Bird, Lee Brewer, Garisha Menon, Joe Newell, John Donovan, Craig Elliott, Phil Neely, Ben Brown, Lauren Castle, David Edwards, Mark Gossard, Nick Head, Damon Miltner, Jennifer Smith, Joel Fry, Philip Payne, Daryl Pope, Chuddy Nodu, Joshua Richardson, Eric Tomlinson, Bobby Cleveland, Robert Faison, Joe Lividay, Donald Rogers, Jesse Smeltzer, and Jonathan Wilson.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Can I keep your cup for a second? Now, you'll notice to go with the inaugural star, I was here at the start, Vanderbilt IT Star. These proud recipients now have the 5-year mug, which they can display with their star. Part of the growing collection of Vanderbilt IT memorabilia and tchotchkes. That goes back to you. You want that?
All right, so now we'll move on to our 10-year honorees. If you would just come up to the table and be presented with your gift. I think we're getting help from Daryl, Penny, and Dan. Thank you.
I'll just come down here. If I come down here, then they'll walk down here first. We won't get all stacked up on the end. Congratulations. How you doing? Congratulations. Fantastic. This will be a much better picture right there. Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Is that our group? Okay.
Okay.
So we do know that there are some folks that couldn't be here today, but we want to make sure that they're recognized with their names being on the slides. But I'm going to, and I'll be calling out all the names, but obviously we don't have everyone here. So Andy Green, Sean Evans, Carolyn Allen, Phyllis Gray, Walter Cantrell, Stanley Gordon, Ronald McCrory, Theodore Whitmore, and Bradley Imitachi. All right, moving on to the 15-year honorees, please.
'98 must have been a pretty good hiring year. We got this many folks from then. Congratulations. Likewise. Congratulations. Congratulations. I'm going to come down here so people... Congratulations. Congratulations. Hello there. Congratulations. Congratulations. Good to see you again.
I think I'm a back row person.
Congratulations. We need a back row, front row trade if possible. Congratulations. Congratulations. Come on down.
You can come out this way, too.
Congratulations. All right, let's do 2 rows here. Maybe you want me to, or you or somebody. There, we'll do this.
Okay, so today our 15-year folks
wait, not
are
the
Rick
picture.
Miniot, Joanne Glover, James Brake, Tanish Newell, Gregory Curlis, David Cochran, Joe Grammelsbacher, David Hardy, Jim Hudgens, Tony Neal, David Overstreet, and Jason Pate.
Now, I would note that the class of '98 is not only a distinguished bunch, they're also very hardy because we got 12 for 12 right here where they're supposed to be. So that's outstanding.
Here we go, right here on me, right here, okay? 1, 3, 1, 2, and 3. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. And we'll have our 20-year honorees.
Come on, you guys can't be tired yet. Tony's just getting started with this group. I shouldn't be tough on you. You can lock me out, right?
You got it.
Congratulations. 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 Thank you. Got a lot of flexibility on the picture here, right?
So we're congratulating Richard Dennison, Brenda Smith, Lola Fitzpatrick, and Elton Buttrey, who is not here. So, thank you.
Brenda, how come you get more applause than I do? That's what I want to know.
We'll discuss that.
Together. Here we go. On 3, this one's right with me, right here. 1, 2, and 3. Thank you.
All right.
And our 25-year honorees, please.
%, attendance from the 25s. Class of '88. Now you really have to come up. Yeah. No, you're good. We got one more here.
I'm going to drink coffee from my
Don't
rocking
tell.
chair
Is that what it is?
with my
Don't
rocking
give me details about what you're drinking. All right.
So we're congratulating Lisa Dorton and Jamie Adams.
Fantastic.
Wait a minute.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And moving on to 30-year honorees, please.
You know, a lot of people don't want to admit they started as teenagers.
Thank you very much.
So for 30 years, we have Sue Sharp, Lisa Howell, and Peg McNabb.
All right. How do you want to do this picture? This side or maybe this side? What do you think? Any way you'd like. All right.
We have one 35-year honoree today.
Congratulations, that's terrific. You need to say her name again? Yeah.
Pat Lane.
Raise your hand.
Way to go, Pat!
All right. Congratulations.
We'll also be saying goodbye to one of our staff members today who's retiring at the end of this month. And to present this person and talk a little bit more about them is Svender Zafjar. I said that wrong. Zafar. I tried too hard.
So I'd like Pat Jones to please join me.
Congratulations. Good.
So Pat Jones joined Vanderbilt Purchasing Department 37 years ago and has provided continued and dedicated service in that department, telecommunications, ITS, and VUIT. She has had many roles along the way, but I personally have had the pleasure of working with her since 2001, when she became the Director of Operator Services. In addition to making our contact center a vital part of Vanderbilt, she has been representing IT in many emergency response situations as part of the university and medical center emergency response teams. Pat has decided to retire on November 2nd, right? She will truly be missed by her team members and colleagues in VUIT and across the organization. Please join me in congratulating Pat on her retirement.
It's fantastic. Let me say a couple words. We'll get our picture. Let's get her. You can have her on the left. All right. So joined in 76, bicentennial year. It's fantastic. You know, we talked last time about how Vanderbilt keeps changing around us, and we have to change. I think your career path, the things you've done, is great evidence of that, right? You're not doing anything now like what you did. No. And you've probably changed direction 4 or 5 or 6 times along the way. Always done a superb job. I'm a little confused about how you can look even younger now than in the picture. Is this from the future? I mean, that's very tricky how you do that.
Next year.
That's next year's photo. That's fantastic. Time travel. As a small token of our appreciation, I'd like you to accept this on behalf of Vanderbilt IT.
Thank you so much.
Okay. I said in the beginning we would describe briefly what's next. All of you are now thinking, hope this doesn't go on as long as what we did to get started and we can get back to the band, and I promise we will very quickly. I do want to remind us, though, of what we ended with last time. Last time we talked about the importance, then, of going back and doing the same work. In other words, no sudden movements. Now, let's not break anything. Let's not have the first thing we do to distinguish ourselves as we come together as a team throw something off track. I've got great news to report. With perhaps a few tiny exceptions, we can declare that, in fact, we didn't. We didn't break anything. We kept all key systems operating. We kept all key relationships intact. We set the right foundation as a building block from which we can scale great heights as Vanderbilt IT. Now, do we need to go back and do the same work again? Well, kinda. You could argue the case to say we've got the same discipline in many regards. We're going to be doing the same kind of work, but it's different already because we're surrounded by a different set of colleagues in many cases. We are swimming in a much bigger pool relative to the skill set that we bring to service of Vanderbilt. And so while parts of the work are the same, you can already feel it changing. And I promise you, as we move along, as the organization evolves, as Vanderbilt keeps changing and we keep responding to that, that the work will look less and less the same as we move through time. The thing that will be the same is the importance of serving our customers. We've talked a lot about that today. That was our first principle. We've changed our organization a lot to reflect that. We've changed our processes a lot to reflect that. In many cases, as people, we've begun to do new things to reflect that in terms of how we spend our time and our mentality, our orientation. And that's the part that won't change. I'll end where I started, which is to say I'm very proud to be part of your team. It's been terrific to get to know a lot of you. I've got many more to meet. Most importantly, many more to roll up the sleeves with and do real work with on behalf of our customers. Let's keep serving those customers. I look forward to seeing you again in ongoing meetings. I do need to end with one small note. Last time, I said I was going to try to outdress Ed Wisdom. He's killing me now because he's in the front row, and I thought at first he might have backed it off a little. In other words, the pocket square, it's all right, but it isn't really his best work. But then, while I was up here presenting earlier, he did this little trick. He goes like this, gives me a little bit of the sock. Now, Ed, we need a visual. We need you up here for a second. Let's hand me that chair there. I want you to see what Ed did to me while I was presenting. Come on up. So I was feeling okay, like maybe he hadn't escalated, but it turns out he went nuclear. Check out what he did while I was up there talking. Pull that point. Talk about evolution to serve the customers. Ed's got it. Over to the band. Ed's good.